NATO is facing a dire dilemma in the escalating Russia versus Ukraine war. The US and EU have been enforcing sanctions on Russia for the invasion of Ukraine, and those are now starting to affect the small but heavily armed Russian enclave of Kaliningrad, a spot of land situated between NATO countries in northeastern Europe. Want to know what the next hotspot in Europe is, which could potentially trigger World War III? Keep on watching to find out how close Europe is to facing Putin and Russia in all-out warfare. Russia is finding themselves isolated from the world and is now struggling to deliver goods to the enclave of Kaliningrad. The natural transit of goods and energy to this historic enclave has been by land and railway from Belarus, through Lithuania and Kaliningrad. The surrounding countries, Lithuania, Poland, and Estonia, are all NATO countries as well as EU members. And Lithuania does not let down on the pressure at Russia, as they have now set in effect crippling sanctions, which include halting the delivery of goods through their country from Belarus and Kaliningrad. This Sunday, the sanctions expand to also include retail goods such as drinks and food. Russia is enraged and are pressuring Germany to have the Eastern allies ease up on the sanctions. The small strip of land connecting the Russian ally Belarus to Kaliningrad is called the Sawaki Gap. This stretch of about 100 kilometers is the only stretch connecting Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania to the mainland Europe, and is strategically important for NATO to control. In the Cold War, this area was seen as the main fighting area if Soviet forces were to attack the West, as whoever controls this gap controls the entire northeastern part of Europe. Now the gap is into play again, and Russia is eyeing the opportunity to once again rattle NATO and threaten with the use of force. For NATO, the Sawaki Corridor is vital to defend the Baltics, where NATO has a large presence of forward deployed troops. NATO needs to control it to support their forces if any dispute should arise in the Baltic Sea or on land. For Russia, they need to control it in order to supply Kaliningrad, which houses modern jets, the brunt of their Baltic fleet, as well as Iskander ballistic missiles, which have a nuclear capacity. From Kaliningrad, Russia could dominate the entire eastern flank of Europe and can use it together with Belarus to spearhead an invasion into Europe. If Russia deploys their forces from Kaliningrad and onto the Swedish island of Gotland, they can establish their potent air defense systems, such as the S-300 and S-400 long-range missile systems, which creates an air defense umbrella to cover the entire Eastern Europe without gaps. And the Baltics will suddenly find themselves on the wrong side of the front line, effectively cut off from the rest of Europe and NATO. However, since Finland and Sweden are now set to join NATO in the matter of months, time is running out for Putin to use this option. Whereas an occupation of the Swedish island would put Russia in conflict with only Sweden before, as they were a neutral country like Ukraine, after Sweden is enrolled into NATO, it would trigger the Article 5 of the NATO treaty. That means full war between all NATO and Russia, a fight that Russia cannot win or would want to fight. So the window for such an operation is closing fast, and Lithuania is tightening the screw on Kaliningrad. Russia has used fewer convincing arguments to deploy into Ukraine and Syria, so what's stopping them from doing the same for Kaliningrad? The diplomatic relations are on a freezing point, and only Germany are trying to ease up on Lithuania's strict enforcement of the sanctions that also Germany voted for and sat in effect. The Germans no doubt worried that the supply cut of gas coming from Russia will force the German nation into a cold, dark winter, whereas gas and energy rationing will become a must to be able to supply their own with their energy need. So, what is more important? To deal with a more aggressive Russia and enforcing the consequence of the Russian foreign politics, or to gain popular votes in their own country? Germany is buckling and are leaving their eastern allies in an increasingly more perilous situation as the days go by. The window of opportunity for Russia to secure their flank is closing. And with Sweden and Finland as NATO allied, the fate of Kaliningrad will always be sealed and defined by NATO. The situation is unacceptable for Russia. We will once again see the Sawaki Gap as the potential spot where massive Russian armor assaults NATO positions. Subscribe to the channel to find out when it happens in Bello.